Now, Amnesia: The Dark Descent is a game I've never played before and barely knew anything about. I know it's the reason for a lot of YouTubers reaching the fame that they have now, back when YouTube was in its early years. God, remember when YouTube was in a better state instead of being what it's turned into now? Back then, you could just watch a video and that was it. Leave your like or your dislike along with a comment and go about your day. Now ads are everywhere and you're constantly being shown get-rich-quick schemes or shown horrible sales pitches. And the worst part of the change? The death of the dislike button. Yet another rare species killed off by the greed of companies wanting to make easy money, using lies to protect their horrible products, claiming that it was for the safety of everyone and that this very beloved button needed to be taken out back and shot like a rabid dog. But the reason this game helped a lot of those YouTubers grow was because it had two things going for it. One, it was and still is to this day a really good game, which helps flow into the second part of this. The reactions you saw from the YouTubers were genuine. If you saw someone being afraid, that's because they were literally afraid. Yeah, there was a time when YouTubers didn't do horrible acting in order to try to get views as desperately as possible. They were just making videos for fun and hobbies, which allowed for the emotions to feel more genuine. What I'm trying to get at here is when you do something right and you put good quality into something, which is something I haven't been able to do with my videos, it doesn't need to rely on false advertisements in order to get sales and doesn't need to force itself into everyone's face as much as possible to get noticed, you know, like a politician does. But if you were to ask me how I would describe this game in particular, I would tell you that this game is beautiful. So let's go ahead and jump into this review so you can get a better understanding of what I mean. Amnesia: The Dark Descent was developed by the Swedish game developers Frictional Games, which was founded by Thomas Grip and Jens Nilsson in 2007. Just a year before the housing market decided to crash like a poorly constructed plane, they specialize in making horror survival games, with Amnesia: The Dark Descent being their crowning jewel. But this wasn't their first game. Their first game would be Penumbra Overture, which was released in 2007. That game would go on to receive average reviews across the scoreboards, which, let's face it, that's better scores than what most AAA games get these days. They would go on to start developing Penumbra Requiem, and during this time they would also begin working on the Amnesia game as well. However, at this time, the game didn't even have a set title at first. They considered calling it Lux Tenebris or Unknown. It wasn't until 2009 that the game would officially get its title, Amnesia, which is that thing my parents developed when I was born and they left me at the hospital. No one has seen them since. Now, I really wish I had a chance to be there when they started developing this game. The reason for this is because they knew exactly what they were doing when making this game, and I would have loved to have been able to learn from some of these geniuses that were there. Now, when this game was released back in 2010, no one knew what to expect from this game, which in my opinion is what you want when you're releasing a horror game, because if everyone already knows what to expect, then it isn't scary. And when people started playing it, they got one hell of an experience with this game, and everyone loved it, except for everyone who was too scared to continue the game at the time. And I have a few select words for those individuals. You were completely justified in your choice. I mean, bloody hell, when I started this game, I was expecting something that had lost its charm and quality over the years, but I was proven wrong quickly. And I can say I can see why you stopped playing this game if you did. And I, along with you, the viewers, can go and watch classic Let's Plays of this game, heck, even modern ones, and see that these gamers were being 100% honest with their reactions. Now, remind you that this wasn't something that was put together by a AAA studio. This was carefully crafted by an indie studio that showed just how good an indie game can be and that it can stand toe-to-toe with bigger name titles. Here, let me show you. Amnesia: The Dark Descent sold 36,000 copies within the first month of release, and a total of 1,360,000 copies within the first 2 years, earning the company a total revenue of $3.6 million in contrast to their $360,000 development budget. Hot damn, those are some good numbers. Frictional Games, be my sugar daddy, please. I'll do anything for you. Except for cooking, but that's because I'm terrible at it. You like ramen? So the game was released and the public loved it unconditionally. But there are people watching this video asking, well, what does this old horror game do in order to be such a great game? Well, let's get into the next part and I'll show you. Now, there are different ways horror games can be approached when making a horror game. However, no matter how you approach it, you can only get it right or you can get it wrong. For example, some horror games tend to be very action-based. You get your weapons, normally starting off with weak ones, which makes it scary starting off, but can lose the feeling of horror when you get weapons that are too strong. Then the game becomes a cakewalk. Then you have games that have a general idea of what they are wanting in terms of atmosphere and monsters, but drop the ball by making the monsters of the map either too simple or too complex. Heck, sometimes it can come down to just not having enough variety in terms of locations and monsters. And let's not forget the gameplay. If you have gameplay that is too easy or too hard, then it's going to drive people away from it. It's either so easy it's not fun, or it's so hard that it's not worth the frustration. Now, Frictional Games, I assume, knew they were going to be limited with what they were going to be working with and decided to take an approach that would be simpler, but at the same time help separate the game from other horror games that were out at the time, which a lot of them at the time were very combat heavy horror games. So Frictional Games did away with the combat and stuck to puzzle solving and atmosphere. At most, this is what you get in terms of combat. I'm not kidding. You have no way of fighting back. You can only slow the enemy down, distract them, or hide from them. Sounds easy, right? Well, it isn't. And I'm going to try my best to describe this the best way I can, because I wasn't expecting such a simple gameplay style to come with such an incredible risk-reward system. So let's go ahead and list the weaknesses you will have. 1. You are slower than the enemy. 2. You can't fight back. And 3. You have 2 things to worry about: your health and your sanity levels. And that's it. Sounds simple to manage, right? Well, here comes the balancing act. Your sanity is affected by the darkness around you, and by making eye contact with the enemy, you also lose sanity as well. Basically the same effect you get when hanging around annoying in-laws you despise. In order to protect your sanity, you must use a light source to keep it from going too low. Light sources can come from rays of lights that are coming through openings, and can come from lights you ignite yourself with tinder. Okay, I'll just light up everything in a room and my sanity levels will be safe then. Well, correct, but here are the drawbacks. 1. Tinder boxes are limited and now you have far less places to hide. 2. You get a lantern you can carry around, but the lantern uses oil that is also limited and the light attracts the enemies. But you can put it away as you please. This way you can hide better and slow your sanity drop rate down a bit. Well, I'll just run through the levels like a speedrunner and finish the levels before the monsters even notice me. Well, here's the problem with that. The more noises you make, the easier it is for them to find you. Also, some of the enemies will be invisible on some levels, and some can be waiting just around a corner because you weren't listening out for them. And I'm gonna level with you, that's the last thing you want happening. But you get the idea. Too much light saves your sanity, but causes you to get spotted easier. No light for too long causes you to lose sanity fast, but makes it easier for you to hide. Slowing down and listening carefully to your surroundings can help, but there are things that are out of your control that affect your sanity as well. This is a fabulous balancing act, and it always had me on edge and had me constantly asking myself, should I use this now or save it for later? Should I light up here or at a spot that may be safer somewhere else? Is that sound real, or is it because my sanity is dropping too low? All I know is that I must survive, and this game's design is making it very difficult for me, and I love it for that. I don't feel brave or overpowered when playing this game. I feel fear, anxiety, and a desperate need to make sure I had an escape plan for every room and hallway I would travel into. And all of these things are further improved by the game's mechanics and design. Now, this game is over 10 years old now, and it does show at times, but it doesn't take away from what the game was trying to go for. The game was made using the HPL engine, which is Frictional Games' in-house game engine. And if those 3 letters seem familiar to you, that's because the engine was named after the author H.P. Lovecraft. H.P. Lovecraft. Which, if you know his stories, then you will feel a similar atmosphere within this game. Thankfully, they didn't go ahead and name the engine after his cat. Go ahead and pause the video and look it up. I'll wait for you. Imagine someone trying to pitch that as a game engine name. Now, the game engine does really well at presenting the world in a spooky way. Great lighting, and also great non-lighting, I guess I can say it that way. What I mean is that when you get into the dark areas, your eyes will slowly adjust to the lack of light and allow you to see somewhat better. But the lack of light makes dealing with the monsters and loss of sanity so much scarier. Was there something there? Was it real? Did I just narrowly avoid danger? I don't know. These were the thoughts that were going through my head when I was playing this game. Then you have the sound effects and the music that just amps up the anxiety levels to higher levels. You have basic sounds, your footsteps, your breathing, and everything you move makes believable sounds. Then you have the sound of the monsters and low sanity sounds that kick in to mess with you. The monsters can be sneaky bastards that can just come out of nowhere, and their heavy breathing and fleshy footsteps are chilling when they are close by. But when they know you are there, the music kicks in, and that's your signal to run and or hide, cause they are after you at this point. And good luck with dealing with them. Then you get sounds that just mess with you as your sanity decreases, and I was constantly paranoid because of this. I'm not going to explain this part to you because if you've never played the game, I want you to reach the same anxiety levels I did. And yes, it is worth the experience. Now, the graphics of the game aren't that bad. Some may say it doesn't look that good, but I feel it looks good and does help with the atmosphere more than something that is more highly detailed. You can easily tell what something is, which is good because the game uses physics for getting around and solving puzzles. Hey, just like Half-Life 2. Now, the atmosphere of this game is something really worth talking about. Due to the way it's designed, it plays with all the normal fears we have, even though we don't think about these fears that much. You are in a castle set in the 1800s and the world is very liminal. You feel like this huge place should have other people in it, but it's just you alone. As you progress, your mind is asking, where is everyone? And then things slowly start to unravel as you listen to stories and read notes left behind by people. Something bad has happened, but you don't know what. Then you start noticing something as you progress. You're not alone, and you have no idea what is going on. Then when everything goes dark, you get that fear of something is just barely out of view. Then your mind tells you not to go in that direction. Think of it like this. When you go swimming in dark, murky waters or swimming at night, you go under and you barely see a few feet in front of you. Then you panic. Well, why? You didn't see anything, and that's the thing. You didn't, but whatever's there can see you, and you are in an area where you have little to no chance of fighting back. And whatever is there, if it even is there, has a great deal of advantage over you. You are powerless, and you are in its element, and all you can do is run. And if you think this doesn't mess with you that hard, then here's a little example of how you will react at certain points in the game. Yeah, that bothered the hell out of me when it first happened. Now this part I'm going to keep to a minimum. I don't want to rob any horror experience from those who haven't played the game, and I don't want to give away the answers to the puzzles as well. Now you wake up with amnesia, I know, shocker, but you have left notes for yourself to remind you of events that have happened. You start looking for more clues in a way out. You start noticing things are a bit strange and inspect some more. Now, like I said before, this game uses physics in its gameplay, and this doesn't just apply to items like rocks, boxes, etc. It also applies to doors, drawers, and cranks. To open something or close something, it adds a feeling of concern. Am I too loud opening this? Did I fully close the door behind me when I was running from the monsters? A simple thing like that felt great and much more suspenseful. You continue looking around, learning this castle has a lot of dark secrets to it, so the previous owners were not great people per se. Then you go outside to get some fresh air to clear your mind, and that doesn't work. You make your way down and you find out that this place may have a leak somewhere. And I kid you not, this right here caused me to lay a brick in my chair. Now look here, I'm an engineer main. I have proof right here. I'm not a great engineer main, but still one nonetheless. And there is a certain character that the engineers tend to both hate and fear, and that is the cigarette-smelling Frenchman, the Spy. So as I played this level, not only did it scare me for what it was, but all I could hear was the spy's voice as I ran away like a defenseless engineer. I explore around some more and I come across a dirty sewer and find this monster. God, you're as ugly as a Tu-22. Fortunately, this one is dead. Unfortunately, this one isn't. God, you're as ugly as a Tu-22U. I get to safety and I come across another one standing guard at the exit. I manage to just barely get around him and immediately have flashbacks to playing Metal Gear Solid 3. I can hear the song and I know you can as well. Don't lie to me. In fact, enjoy this muted clip so you can relive that memory. God, I still need to play Metal Gear Solid 1. I'm going to skip a good amount of the game at this point. Again, if you haven't played this classic horror game before, I don't want to spoil the fear for you. I come across this big room and start having some trouble with my sanity levels, but I managed to pull through and test to see what electricity does to the human body. It wasn't fun. Then I find the old torture rooms and remind myself that horrible people these days are lucky because this mess was used a lot on innocent people back in the day. At least the office is in cleaner conditions. After doing some more puzzles, I managed to get through the force field and make my way to the boss. Going to level with ya? This isn't anything to worry about. It's actually considered the worst level in the game due to how easy it is. I highly recommend this game, because this right here isn't a lie. This game had me scared to move, and it had me scared to use light, the two things I needed to use in order to survive. When a game turns your needs of survival into a weakness and handle it in a way that is a balancing act close to perfection, then you have something great on your hands. The only regret I have with this game is not playing it sooner, but I am very thankful that this game has held up so well over the years. Most other horror games don't even come close to having such longevity with their player base. Hell, even some AAA horror games with larger budgets don't get recommended to be played nowadays. And that can come down to companies not caring or not understanding what the fans want from their games. Frictional Games knew what the fans wanted, so they cooked it up nice and steady and threw in some spices and gave it to everyone on a nice golden platter. And if you haven't tried this game, pick it up on Steam. I'll leave a link in the descriptions down below. And that's all I have to say about the game. I hope you have a good day.